I'll probably say Dinah, but it's all the same person. And this is one of the stories in the Old Testament. It's very unique in that it's a story about a woman, and that is unique in and of itself, because remember, it was a men's world, and very rarely do they talk about women or even mention the names, because it says that Dinah was Jacob's only daughter, but you would never know, because when daughters were born, I mean, it didn't mean anything, and they wouldn't mention it at all. And it's still that way in the ancient Near East. So anyway, what I thought we'd do is we'll read the story, and then we'll talk about what it's all about. Okay, so we start with Genesis 34, 1 through 4. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the native girls. Remember that. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul longed for Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl and spoke kindly to the girl and won her heart. Remember that. And Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this girl to wife." Okay. And Jacob heard that Dinah, his daughter, had been defiled. Now his sons were with the cattle in the field. So Jacob held his peace until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came from the field, and when they heard the news, they were grieved, and they were very indignant, because they had brought folly in Israel in the disgracing of Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor spoke with them, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Give her to him in marriage. Intermarry with us, and give your daughters to us in marriage, and take our daughters to you, and dwell with us. Behold, the land is before you. Dwell and trade in it, and inherit in it." And Shechem said to her father and to her brothers, "Let me find mercy in your presence, and whatever you shall ask of me, I will give," in order to have his son have Dinah. Now, this is, of course, what he's doing, and when he's talking about is the dowry. A dowry was always paid to the father of the damsel, and Hamor would pay greatly for the hand of Dinah for his son. Okay. Now, ask me as much as you wish, both dowry and gifts, and I will give you according as you shall say to me. But give me this girl to wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, because they had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said to them, "We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. But on this condition will we consent to you, that you will become like us and circumcise every male as we are circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you in marriage and take your daughters to us in marriage, and we will dwell with you and we will become one people. But if you do not hearken to us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and we will be gone. Okay, and the story continues. But before we go on, I thought we would talk a little bit about circumcision. In the beginning, the primary objective of circumcision was the sealing of the covenant that God made with Abraham and his descendants. Okay, the Near East covenants or agreements were sealed with human blood. And at times, sheep were slaughtered, roasted, and eaten when celebrating an agreement. Now, the blood, of course, circumcision was the removal of the foreskin. And that was to seal the covenant with the blood. Now, just some interesting information here. Okay, circumcision was and is a ritual in the Jewish faith, much like baptism to the Christians. And the Jewish faith, 8 days after birth, the child is circumcised. And it is, well, it's a celebration, just and a significant admission into the Jewish faith, just like baptism is to the Christians. Okay, and
I have a
interesting.
question.
Go, yes, sir.
Oh, did that custom of circumcision, did that exist before the Jewish faith? Do you know if it was,
Abraham.
Right, but even before Abraham, is there anywhere that it's spoken about in other cultures that they practice a similar custom?
I don't know for sure of if it's that particular. Interesting question. But the idea of sealing the contracts with blood, human blood, was there. But we'll keep that in mind, and because I don't. It'd be interesting to see, like, if the Egyptians or people like that did it, and
Right.
I didn't know. I didn't find that anywhere, but let's research it and find out.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, circumcision is a ritual in the Muslim faith. Okay. And this is interesting too, and I have a little story. Okay, it came about because of the need to be clean to pray. Those with the foreskin would not necessarily be clean. And let's talk about that cleanliness thing. Even to this day, when when the Muslims pray, they have to wash their hands and they have to wash their feet. That's just that's their tradition. That's their custom. Because you did not pray if you were dirty. So, and that holds true in Jerusalem. They have the Wailing Wall, which is the wall where the people go to pray, and they put their prayers in the little cracks in the wall. But outside of that, there's big washing places where people will have to wash their hands and some their feet. The Muslims, they do their feet, and that's because they have to be clean to pray. Now, and I know that that's true even today, because we in our other business, in our other lives, we worked with schools, colleges, schools, and we were at this school one day, and went into the. Now I'm not sure. I'm not sure that was me, because I'm not sure that the women did this, but the men's room, okay. In the men's room, they had signs up that say, "No washing feet in the sinks," and I thought that was so funny, And then, and so Martin kind of asked around a little bit, said, "Well, that's because there were Muslims there at the school, and they had to wash their feet before they prayed. I guess they prayed at noon and some other times." So anyway, just a little bit, and of course we know that circumcision now is just it's a health practice. For us, it's not Christian or Jewish or anything. Well, it still is Jewish for many people. Don't know about Orthodox Jews, yes. Reformed, I don't know. But circumcision is just a health thing, and Christians do baptism. Now, the interesting thing about it, though, is when you read in when the church first started, you start reading in Acts and the New Testament, there was a big problem with this, because remember the people who converted to Christianity, the early church first, were Jewish, and they believed that if a Gentile was going to be converted, or it wasn't converted, but if they were going to be a Christian, that they would have to be circumcised. Well, Paul finally put a stop to all that, and they did not have to be circumcised to be those early Christians. But remember, the early Christians were Jews. Culturally speaking, they were. And so when the Gentiles entered in, they finally said no, and they didn't have to strictly follow all of the laws. And but circumcision was one, and they said no, you don't have to be circumcised. And I happen to know that nowadays, if someone converts to Judaism, you do not have to be circumcised either. So just a little background on that. Any questions about circumcision? You can only imagine what, I don't know the numbers of the men in Shechem, but you can only imagine what the scene was. It's a little different when it happens when you're a baby than when you're a grown man. So imagine, just imagine what was going on, and those boys, I'm telling you. Okay, and their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man did not delay to do the thing, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter, and he was honored above all the household of his father. Then Hamor and Shechem, his son, came to the gate of their town and spoke to the men of their town, saying, "These men are peaceable with us, therefore let them dwell in the land and trade in it, for the land is large enough before them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. But only on this condition will the men consent to dwell with us, to become one people, when every male among us is circumcised, as they are circumcised. Behold their wealth, their possessions, and all their cattle will eventually be ours. Only let us consent to their proposals, and they will dwell with us. So you got deception going on here, kind of both ways. It would have been a benefit either way, but it's like the people there, the Canaanites, where they lived. Because remember, Jacob bought a piece of land from them, and that's where he settled. I mean, he was right there among them. But so that's but it was honorable. Jacob was being honorable about it. Hamor and Shechem were being honorable about it, and of course, let me finish my sentence, and then we'll. And of course, they were in agreement. They had no idea what was going to happen to them. And just take a minute there. Thank you, Vin. If I don't know if y'all can see the chat box, but if you click on your chat box, you'll see that Africans. I guess before that. I guess that was before that. But anyway, interesting trivia there. And if you y'all know about the chat box, it should pop up on your screen, and then you can look at that.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, it's not just the physical. That's the whole problem. It's a problem with baptism too. It was when Abraham first did it and sealed that. It really was a covenant. It was sacred with God. But as like many things that become rituals, I mean, they're Levi and Simon that we're going to talk about now. They didn't. All they know is that we're circumcised and they're not, and there wasn't any sacred anything about it. And as you will see, they were just going to do what they were going to do. So, and when all the adults of the town had heard from Shechem and from his father Hamor, they circumcised every male, those that went out of the gate of his town. That is an idiom, and it just merely means all of the adult males. And it came to pass on the third day, when the men were sore, two sons of Jacob, Simon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took each man his sword and came against the town quietly and slew every male. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. Now that's one. Okay, that's one part. Now the other part. Then the sons of Jacob came back to the slain and plundered the town because they had defiled their sister. They took sheep and oxen and their asses and whatever was in the town and in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives they carried captive and plundered everything that was in the town. Horrible, a horrible story. It is. Okay, now Jacob's reaction here. Then Jacob said to Simon and Levi, "You have done me a great harm, for you have hurt my reputation among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I being few in numbers, they may gather themselves together against me and attack me. I shall be destroyed, both I and my household." But they said, "Our sister has been treated like a harlot. Now, all right. Now let's just kind of look at this story. Now, why this story was put in here, I've looked at lots of commentaries, and no one really says why this story would be in there, except that it's relating. It's starting. Jacob's starting to have family troubles. When you have 12 sons, you're gonna have trouble. And so as to why, why they actually put it in there. Okay, one of the well, we'll just talk about this part here about Simon and Levi. What they say, and those in the commentaries that people were talking about, they're talking about that Jacob didn't chastise his sons. He didn't punish them. He didn't really do much of anything. That's the commentary, the part of the story. But what happens later, before Jacob dies, he splits out everything with his sons and whatnot. And so they relate it to the idea that, okay, if you go to Genesis 49, 5-7, he's going through his children, and he's, divvying things up and whatnot. And so he says, Simon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of anger are in their nature. I never agreed to their counsels, nor did I lower myself to sit in their assembly. For in their anger, they slew men, and in their rage, they destroyed a town wall. Cursed be their anger, for it is raging, and their wrath, for it is fierce. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So, cursed, okay, cursing, a big thing back then, and even today. So Jacob cursed essentially Levi and Simon. Now, and how that was is, okay, Levi and Simon never had any land of their own. Okay, now if you think about this as we go forward, all right, the Levites became the priestly order, and those of the priestly order were not allowed to have land. And so the Levites and Levi, that was Levi's curse. His people and his descendants never had any land. Okay. And the thing with Simon is that he had land, but it wasn't his own land. He was given to settle within the territory of Judah. Remember, Judah is one of the brothers. So that's how they relate that part of this story as to why it's there. But all right, but let's just talk a little bit about, okay, it of course, with our culture and whatnot, they're really, people get really upset over, she was abducted, and she was raped, and we like to capitalize on that stuff. But if you look, okay, now I'll just say that this is me putting something together, so don't go and try to do little side notes or anything. But think about this. Okay, she went out, Okay, she went out among the native girls, and um, and then when you get to verse 3, um, he did. I mean, he did defile her, but he spoke kindly to her. He won her heart. Okay. Now, so so was she raped against her will and all of that? Um, I think we have to go back to, all right, to the status of women, and she did not have anything to say about it. Although it's clear that she was with Shechem, okay, and she was. I don't think she was not consenting. I think she would have stayed because it clearly says she, she loved him and whatnot. She would have stayed, but because just because uh, their sister was defiled, and that's the last thing they say. They went and did all that because their sister was defiled, and it did not matter to them whether. And Jacob made the Jacob was willing to make the arrangements to have her wed, um, and but the thing is it just the brothers, they it's like they said in that verse 49, they were angry and revengeful. And so now and so whether it was, rape and abduction, it did not matter. They defiled his sister, and that was that. And one of the things to think about here, and okay, she was defiled, but there's another incident in the Bible where it's almost the same thing but with different people, and that is, think about David, King David, and Bathsheba. Now, Bathsheba was somebody else's wife, actually, but he was the king, and in this case, Shechem was the prince. Well, if they want, if they called and wanted you, well, the people went. The women went. Sheba went with David. So again, it's that's just kind of the story about the rape and abduction. Why was it in there? Because Dinah disappears. Okay, she's only mentioned one more time when at the end of the chapters there, where they're talking about all the children of Jacob. She mentioned one more time, and that's it. So we don't know now. But when we're talking about, let's talk about revenge. One of the things about the idea of revenge, and of course you can find, if you Google this, there's just tons and tons of stuff like revenge. But to me, the sad part about this is we have in a good bit of Christianity the idea that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, the authority of God. All right. And so we have people who will, I don't know if you've ever been around somebody and they're preaching but they've heard some of these preachers and whatnot, and you say, well, and they say, but it's in the Bible. And honestly, I don't know, I didn't get any concrete written examples, but I know that especially right now in this day and age, people, they will go to the Bible and they will cite this, and they will get their guns and if somebody did that. And that's the sad part about not understanding the Bible and not understanding the culture. Now, the culture back then, okay, they were angry and whatnot. Okay, and remember, they went back and they destroyed everything, and they took the cattle and whatnot. Well, that was the culture back then. That is what they did. And when you get into Joshua and all the battles and stuff, Joshua did the same thing, and that really wasn't in the name of God. It was destroying everything like that and whatnot. That was the culture. That is what they did. And so so that's just a little thing about about the revenge. And of course, deception. This is another, if you follow through the deception with Jacob, Jacob deceived his father. Laban deceived Jacob, and now Simon and Levi, where they deception played a bad role with Jacob because they had to move. They had to move because Simon and Levi did what they did. So that little theme of deception plays out through there too. And if anybody has any other comments about this story, this is, people just think, well, there's no rape in the Bible. And the other thing that we're going to get to a story here soon, well, prostitution. Whoa, and people get really upset. Well, yeah, there's prostitution in the Bible. And Dr. Ergo used to say, whatever you think you might want to do and you're not sure, just come to me and I'll show you where it is in the Bible. And you can do it because there's everything in the Bible, everything. But the key is that's the idea of understanding the culture and what and what lays behind it. There's another one of the Psalms. In one of the Psalms, there's it says, we can't wait for our men to throw your babies up against the wall and things like that. That has been a controversial verse for forever, and it's really turned off people, from the Bible. But what it was, the people in that particular psalm were people who had been captured by the Babylonians. Remember, they actually moved all the people from Israel and Judah. They actually took them captive and took them away. And so that psalm and those verses was written when they were in captivity. And yes, they would sit there, and we do it too. And they would sit there and say, well, I hope, I hope they get their due, and our guys go out and smash their baby, because that's what they did. There was no, there's no morals. So anyway, that's all right. I just had that story. So I think we're kind of done with Dinah, and like I say, we'll never hear from her again. Let's just go to well, here, I'll just leave this up. Now, do any of you you got any comments? Thank you, Vin, for that. Let's go to the chat thing that Vin wrote here. Okay. African tribes practice circumcision as a transition to warrior status. Okay. The Aborigines and Pacific. Okay. And Egyptians too. Egyptians, yeah. So yeah, and well, it kind of makes sense, because when you're studying back this far, I mean, they're surrounded with all of these pagan practices. And that's the other thing you have to remember. So, okay, well, thanks again. Now, anybody have any comments or any questions?